Hey, that pumpkin belongs to Nick Garza, you know.
Yeah. Fortunately, Nick died. He just left me this in his will.
Nick died? But we planned a trip. We were gonna go to Tuscany, listen to the waves crash on the beach, play some Barbra Streisand. He was gonna olive oil and me later in the night. When did...
The jerk owed me $2. So what's going on here?
It's just another day on STUBTOWN. I think business as usual.
Nice, so things are going well. Cool.
Well, yeah. Very normal. Very mundane. No frills. No action. Completely insignificant.
I hired a hitman.
Oh, thank.
Wait, like an actor?
No, he kills people.
I've seen this guy work before. He's strapped like a Liefeld character. He's got pouches.
Gang.
Where's Brad? Where have you been?
I had to take the stairs.
What does that have to do with anything?
Shut the fuck up. Let's review a movie. Well,
Oh, me running. Hey, Lynn? Elevator's broken.
Take the stairs.
But it's hard.
This is the reason I quit.
Oh.
Because I don't like you.
I mean,
Nobody does.
you know what, that's fair. It's just the stairs. Come back to me.
these things are fucking useless. Just like is that all you know how to do? Oh, jeez. I'm so sorry. I didn't.
Craig, your arm, man, it's messed up, dude.
Oh my goodness.
What did you do?
I don't know. I'm just trying to get to the stairs. My show. I'm late for my show.
Show? A fucking show? You really think it's that important? This man's life is in danger.
I'm so sorry.
The stairs are that way, you fucking animal. Craig, look at it. Craig, your arm. Hey, you. Craig, what? Are you okay?
You've got to be kidding me.
Oh, Brad. I fixed the elevator.
That's great.
Is any of this worth it anymore?
You know, I've been thinking a lot about that lately. And well,
Welcome to STUBTOWN. I'm one of your hosts, Brad Weber. As always and forever. I'm one of your hosts, Brad Weber. I already said it. Okay, we're gonna keep going. Introduce yourselves, please.
I'm John Smith. I'm Aaron. I'm back. I missed the last review. I saw the hashtag fire Aaron, so if we get a hashtag don't fire Aaron just right
No.
here,
No.
that'd be great.
I'm Nolan Gold, hashtag don't fire Aaron.
Woo! That's spiked.
This is a groundswell.
It's gone. Dude.
Kai yelled at me
Yeah.
because we started spiking hard. So, today, we're talking about John Wick, Chapter 3, Parabellum. And,
Para what?
Parabellum. So, talking about John Wick, I guess we'll just open it to initial thoughts before we get into spoilers. Like, what did you think of the thing?
Well, it definitely seemed to be a very interesting perspective on how one chooses to eliminate a number of foes in a very quick and successive manner.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of people get killed in this movie.
A lot of people die.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I watched,
I like you.
don't be friends with a hitman, please.
Hashtag don't fire Aaron.
No! So, I watched John Wick 1 and 2 over this past weekend, so after I saw John Wick 3, but my roommate said he'd never seen them before, so I sat him down, made him watch them, and it was like an opportunity for me to watch them again, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think I like John Wick 3 better, having seen those two more recently. Like,
Okay,
I came out of John Wick 3, I liked it, but I was a little less hot on it, but I guess the progression of the thing wasn't as apparent to me, and also John Wick 1, really slow. Really, really, really
It's
slow.
real simple, real just
Yeah.
like a closed story, which like I like about it in a way, but I definitely think each film has just gotten better. Because I watched 1 and 2 like the day before I went and saw the third, and that's why I thought the third was just the best one in the series. Like narrative, maybe 2 was a little bit stronger, but the action in this one is just so good.
Yeah, I don't know. I think number one more had that sort of like gut punch feel where when you saw it for the first time,
Yeah.
you know, it was like something that you've never really seen before. Like this, it's like some of the best fight choreography ever, you know? Some of the best I've ever seen in American film, definitely. And I guess since then, for me, it's just kind of it's lost a little bit of it. You know?
Yeah.
Each time I see it, like this movie's 2 hours and 10 minutes long. And a lot of it is just people getting shot in the head.
Yeah, it is.
In 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think it's like a continuation of John Wick 2, you know, if you haven't got enough of it, go, you know, and have a fun time. I mean, it is fun, but there's moments where I'm just like kind of tuning out, just like, okay, this action scene has gone on for 40 minutes. I'm a little bit tired.
Yeah, I
you
get what
know?
you mean.
Like,
Yeah, I have
And
no
what is
idea.
wrong with that?
Yeah, I have no idea what
Do
you
you
guys
have
mean.
What I appreciate about the first one is that it is very expository, but it sets up the story very well, allowing the other two films to continue in a very linear pattern. So you're able to appreciate the full story,
Right.
which, you know, continuing for the other films potentially, you can start at one, enjoy it in its own right, and then watch the other two.
Yeah, what I really love about these films is the world building aspect. And
Which
they
one
never,
has like none of.
Yeah, one has like little hints here and there, but like second one continues to raise some questions. The third one finally gives you some answers, while still bringing up questions. But the world is just, it works so well.
it's excellent world building, yeah, definitely. I think 2 probably had the most world building, though, like as far as just, you know, expanding on what the actual assassin organization is and the structure of it and all that.
Yeah, I
this
was
one expands on it. definitely.
Surprised watching 1 again. I was like, oh, there's none of that. Like they say, you can't kill people on the Continental, and that's about it. Like
Yeah,
they
and then
don't.
they have these gold coins.
Yeah,
You're,
that's
like just expected to know.
like all the Bowery King and stuff like that. Like the homeless people like taking the coins. Like that to me is so like integral to what I think about as John Wick. And like, yeah, I think it really goes to what you were saying about how it sets up a story. Like John Wick to me, especially watching John Wick 3, like even just the composition of the framing in John Wick 3, I could picture speech bubbles and like it's a comic book.
Yeah, there's something very comic booky about the whole thing. It's great.
Like an image comic from like
Yeah.
the early mid 2000s, you know what I mean? Like I love the aesthetic of this just like bright colors, and it's really great, and the story lends itself to that as well.
Yeah, and the second one definitely sets up for the third one in a big
Yeah.
way because, as we said, like the first one, not a lot of story. Or, I mean, there's a lot of story, but not a lot of like world building involved. So they definitely go more into that in the second one to like set up for the third one. Because if there wasn't that setup in the second one, the third one would make almost no sense.
Yeah, what I really appreciate about just these movies as an action trilogy, and it's like, or just action movies in general, but especially the third one, is the cinematography. Because they just like, there's no like super quick cuts. It's not all handheld, and you're not trying to like hide the fact that these actors are really old and can't do anything. There's these whole sweeping wide angles, and you just like leave the actors in it so you can see all the action, which is why I like the third one a lot, because there's just so much action to see.
You get to see every bloody detail.
Exactly.
Speaking of like specific action scenes, I guess we could move into spoilers. Like if you consider those spoilers, like
I think we'd all like recommend the movie though. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Definitely. If you like the second one or you like the first one, you're gonna like this one.
yeah, I had a really great time at it. Like there were parts that just had me smiling and going, oh, like, you know, that thing that happens when you watch John Wick is you go, oh no, he's not gonna, and then he gonna.
Killed someone with a pencil.
Yeah, the pencil kill in John Wick 2 in particular is that moment for me, like, oh man, like,
And then in this one,
there's a lot.
spoilers.
No,
The
spoilers? We're in
I think
spoilers.
I know what you're gonna say.
the book.
The book.
Oh,
At the beginning,
that's not what I was
when
thinking.
he cracks the dude's neck over the book.
Artistic.
Oh my gosh.
The 10-minute long book kill is so, like, I was like, all right, like, when are we gonna get to it? Because it starts right in it, you know? And I'm like, oh, here we go. Like, the big guy comes in and he's like, hello, John. Like, he starts hitting him with the book. I'm like, oh, yeah, like, it's time.
So I guess, do we just like, because these movies are all fight scenes, do we just want to start with like favorite fight scene in the film?
Yeah.
Well, I did really appreciate the book killing scene because it shows the versatility of like common household items and how you can use them to murder other people with. And witnessing somebody be able to like take the written word, beat the shit out of somebody with it, like choke them out with it, and then snap their neck.
Yeah, they say the pen is mightier than the sword,
Yeah.
and the book is.
Even
It's
mightier
a
than
lot
the
of,
pen,
it is a
apparently.
lot of pen.
It's a lot of pen.
My favorite scene is Knife Museum because that shit rules. Sorry, I swore.
It's so good.
That whole antique store sequence is
Yeah.
so good.
The one thing that like is almost just over the top and ridiculous, how easy the glass breaks when he was just thrown in and
Yeah.
they get broke, and so he threw some knives and then got thrown into other glass, so he just threw some knives.
It's that awesome moment where him and the other guy are laying on the ground and they both look to the right and just see, like they're fighting with their hands and they
Yeah.
look to the right and see all the knives and they're like, but the one kill in that sequence in particular that I thought you were going to bring up instead of the book kill was the close-up on the eye.
Yeah.
Like, they're just like, they're not gonna, and then they
do.
gonna.
Yeah. I know you had some opinions on the knife scene.
Yes, one of the things that I found a little difficult about the knife scene was the unbelievable nature of the fact that people would be able to just take, 6 to 8 inch knives or 5.5 if you're average, out of your own body and then throw them at other people.
Is that not realistic?
Not realistically, no, because they would cause so much damage to your muscle structure that you wouldn't even be able to like lift your arm, much less throw a blade.
There is a sense of like some realism in these films as far as like the action goes.
But then the ending happens.
Yeah, we'll get to that point. Favorite fight scene.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Favorite fight scene. Probably when Halle Berry's character's name? Sophia.
The dog stuff?
Yeah, Sophia and John, they're in the mint. You find out where those gold coins come from, and then they have to escape it. And there's this whole, like, I don't know, maybe 15, 20-minute long sequence.
I felt this one dragged a little
I-
bit.
Oh, me too, man.
I-
I think that's when I really started to just sort of like tune out of the movie. It
Yes.
was around that point.
It's the dogs, though, that always brought me back. Because,
The
like, it was like
eating
The
dogs.
nut-eating dogs are pretty cool.
It was just so much fighting, and it was so much like just so many guns, and I was like, this is so cool. And then like I guess I kind of felt maybe a little fatigue at some point, and then the dogs come in, they just like rip people to shreds, and I'm like, yeah.
Oh, dude, and it has like really good line at the start of it where it's like, God,
Like,
she's like, he
shot my dog.
and he's like, yeah,
I get it. None of the dogs died.
Awesome.
There's no dead dogs in this.
Nope.
So
When Braun shot that dog, though, I was like it was just total shock for me. I didn't.
I think I
expect
heard the like audience, everyone in the room, just go, no.
it. Like quietly, everyone in unison.
Yeah.
Like there's been so many headshots up to this point
Yeah.
within the dog. It's like, no.
Yeah.
All right, no.
I think it's human nature, you know.
What's your favorite scene?
Probably the antique scene. I feel like all my favorite scenes happen in the first like 15 minutes of
Yeah.
this movie, and then in the last 15 minutes.
When John is on the ropes, that's interesting. Not
Yeah.
when he's like a killing force. If that,
I did like the what? Yeah, that is one of like towards the end. One of my favorite sequences is like the Continental's been shut down and people are infiltrating it. So John and
So great.
who's
The concierge.
the concierge.
Does he have a name?
Yes.
No, Winston's the other guy.
Yeah.
Winston's Ian McShane. Is that his name? Is that Ian McShane?
Ian McShane,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Whatever. The
I got one.
concierge and John Wick like go out, and then you get to see that the concierge is kind of like actually a badass too.
Yeah.
And there's this whole moment where they like just go out, kill everybody that's in this armor plated stuff, and then they come back, realize they're in armor plates, and they just look defeated. And like Winston's like,
Dude. Yeah, that moment
sipping
rules.
the
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
and then they take shotguns at. Oh, there's so many good fights. There's.
It's like I need more firepower.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about the ending whole action sequence?
The whole Continental thing.
Yeah, like did it because it does that moment, and then it goes into John
Oh,
fighting the
up-
fanboy.
Up in the
Yeah.
like glass thing. I thought it was okay. Like after the Continental sequence, which I thought was like the hypest. Like I was just kind of a little done at that point. Maybe like I was like, oh, John Wick's gonna fight this guy. Like it just. I don't know if he wasn't as compelling a villain as like Common was in John Wick 2 or something. Just I don't know. He was gonna fight him, I guess.
I like the idea of there being a fanboy of John Wick in John
Yeah.
Wick, though.
That's like the comic booky stuff I'm talking about,
Yeah.
right? Just like these totally zany characters.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, if you've accrued like enough experience and you have a reputation that way, of course there are going to be people who respect your work and admire it, especially other killers.
Then there's also the fight where he's on the horse room, where they're fighting with the horses.
So that motorcycle scene, is that not just the exact same scene from the Raid, right? That happens in the Raid? The Raid 2?
Maybe the Raid 2, definitely not the Raid 1.
There's another movie I'm thinking of where there's a motorcycle sight scene, and it's very good, and it's literally the same.
That's actually kind of what, like, if the Raid had, like, an American version of it, I think it would be, like, the John Wick movies, where it, like, starts off really, like, closed off in this one kind of world, and then it starts to world build in the second one. Obviously, there's not three. There are the people,
Dread. Let's get a Dread sequel. Make it that.
people from the people from the Raid are in the John Wick Raid
Yeah. Yeah.
as the little,
The Knife Boys
as the, like, henchmen for the fanboy.
that he doesn't kill, right?
Oh, dude, a sequence I didn't talk about was the part where he goes back to where he was raised. You know, that movie theater.
Oh,
where
that
he
was
right? That was
so
so good,
cool.
right? That was great
So-
world building. Like,
The
oh my God.
toenail.
Yeah, and then we find out that there's like this, I don't know, like this school or something.
Conservatory
Yeah,
for,
where
like-
they're like teaching kids to be either ballerinas or like killers and.
Both.
I was actually disappointed they didn't build more on
Yeah.
that. I feel like that for something that was as significant as a major part of John Wick's backstory, it was a very brief part of the film. Like they spend so much of the second film doing like world building, then we finally get into the third and we finally get a glimpse of like who John Wick was, and then they just like cut it out and move on.
I think
That's because we'll probably get it in the fourth one.
That's the point I was getting to.
Okay.
Like, I think that might be emblematic of my biggest problem with this movie is that it's not the conclusion of this thing. Like, when I think they kind of were framing it as that in, like, maybe some of the marketing or something like that, right? And, like, maybe I'm totally wrong on that fact, but I think, like, John Wick, like, that stuff is a far more compelling storyline than him, like, going to the desert and, like, just messing around with dogs for a little bit. Like,
Oh, yeah, he loses his finger.
yeah, he does lose his finger, but it's like, I want story centralized on John, I guess. I don't know, like, the world to me is only ever interesting through John, right? Like, it's interesting to see John go to the Continental. It's interesting to see John kill somebody at the Continental. It's interesting to see what excommunicado looks like through him, right? And so, I don't know, like, that stuff was really great in the ballerina place. Like, there's one shot in particular where they're doing the dance or whatever, and then the music, or like those guys come through.
Oh, yeah.
Like them as they're dancing, like that whole sequence is so fantastic. I thought we were gonna get something with like a Jedi temple slaying or something like that of them like killing all the kids, but the kids are like,
Yeah.
Or adept younglings.
yeah.
We'll probably get that in the fourth one.
And I don't want to.
I want a fourth
No,
one.
I was thinking
so
about
bad.
this though. Like, I was more excited for the third one, like after seeing the second one, than I am for the fourth one, having seen the third one.
Yeah. I guess.
want more John Wick.
I guess
I'm gonna see it.
I'm not tired of it yet.
I'm not tired of it either.
They
Like,
keep getting more and more creative with these fight scenes, and I just want to see what they do next.
yeah, I guess from a purely like spectacle standpoint, right?
Yeah.
Like it totally is great.
But man, that end of like 2 where he's running away with his dog, and you're just like, what's gonna happen?
that is.
It doesn't really have that at the end of this, you know. It's kind of like,
I feel like it does. I feel like, if
Not quite
anything,
as
I feel
much.
like there's the first film, and there's the second film, and then I feel like 3 and 4 are almost like part 1 and part 2 of like a trilogy. Because just how this one ends, like I felt like the ending was very sudden, and it definitely had like a lot of space to go directly into the next one.
Yeah, I guess we'll talk about the ending now, like just because we're here, sort of,
Yeah.
and like.
yeah.
So it felt like they kind of just needed to wrap the movie up quick. Like they got out on that balcony, and then Ian McShane throws him off or whatever. And John Wick, like we said, has always been grounded. I'm not usually the kind of person to be like, well, that's not realistic, so I don't like it. But there was something about John Wick falling off the top of a building in New York City and hitting everything on the way down, James Franco style, and then like being alive. Like there was just something about it, and especially going into it thinking it was a conclusion. Like, and
Is
then
that a Spider-Man reference?
yeah, it was.
Okay. Clip.
Yeah, you know, there was just something about it that, like, I was like, oh, we're full comic book now, and, like, I'm okay with that, but I wanted a conclusion.
Or like Lawrence Fishburne back at the end, right? And it's like, how
Not
did he
Forrest
get-
Whitaker. What's his name?
Lawrence Fishburne.
Fish.
Yeah.
If you could just censor that.
Wait, can you just give me one good, like, Lawrence Fishburne?
Lawrence Fishburne.
What were you saying, though, about?
Yeah, no, when he comes back at the end, right? And it's kind of like, wait, didn't he?
Get cut 700 times in the face.
Yeah, and it's like, so they
7.
didn't kill him? They're professional killers. They killed everyone up to him, but then they just didn't kill him.
Well, they are very specific in saying that they were giving him 7 cuts, not an execution. Although
Yeah,
I
7
will say
cuts or
that
7
All right.
in the display, it is very.
It's implied that he.
It's
is
implied in
getting
the fact that
killed.
there is like quite a bit of like arterial spray in like one of the last cuts that he received. So it is very indicative that he's been executed. But simply by their statement of saying like 7 cuts, more indicates that it's a punishment rather than an execution.
But, and then they just set up his thing, I guess, as a death more so, like, long live the king, like that whole thing, you know? I don't know. He'd be a good Mufasa, man.
Yeah.
Right on.
Unfortunately,
It's
Forrest
Lawrence
Whitaker.
It's Forrest Whitaker's Mufasa, unfortunately. Yeah.
Everything the light touches is your kingdom.
Actually, you know what? Forrest Whitaker wouldn't be a bad Mufasa either, but
Damn, you're right.
nothing will beat James Earl Jones.
No.
I will say though.
So now we're reviewing The Lion King.
What were you saying?
Oh, like with that end sequence of like when he falls off the building, that definitely does like, at least for me, kind of took me out of like the reality of the world, because there are many like situations in the film that I appreciate as like realistic in the fact that like, you know, in most action films they just, you know, it's the, you know, never-ending bullets in the gun kind of situation where they just keep going, whereas actually in John Wick films they actually show him stopping and like stripping bodies for ammunition.
Yeah.
Which
And those are some of the most exciting parts, actually.
When he's on the ropes, when John
when
is-
he has to change.
right,
down
because he's
flips
out
or
now, he has to use an
something.
empty gun
There's
or
the
a knife
scene-
or something
There's
else.
a scene in the film where he's in the Continental fighting the armor like plated dudes, and he like runs out of bullets in his like machine gun, so he just takes it and throws it at the person's head. That's so good. You said something that I was going to respond to, but
I'll give you a second.
I don't remember.
I like that. It seems like John Wick is like aging and getting old, and it's like a, kind of starting to be a theme in the movie.
Yeah.
I kind of dig that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was the moment where he does fall off the building. That is the one and the only moment in that film that I was just like, I didn't like it.
Yeah, like,
His back would have been broken, realistically, from that height, like hitting a railing straight on with his back. It wasn't even like his front or his side, and either way, that still would have been like severe internal bleeding. But he would have been like at least paralyzed, if not dead, by the time he hit the
I
bottom.
mean, he does show up in a shopping cart, and he's like, "I'm pissed off."
Yeah, like I get like oh, it's a fucking John Wick movie. I keep swearing. I'm sorry, but I'm editing this, so it's
Every
like
time you swear, just edit in Forrest Whitaker.
yes. So like there's a universe you buy into though in these movies, right?
Yeah.
And sure, in these movies he has a bulletproof suit which works somehow infinitely, right? But there's just something about that moment in particular that really, it almost haunts me. like
Like we saw that in the first John Wick, where he's like in the club, like trying to kill the
He falls off the
dude's
table.
son, and he gets thrown off just like a one-story little platform, and he's like done.
Mm-hmm.
And he like gets up, and he's already like hurt. And then he does that same thing in this one, but from
30 stories.
I was like,
I'd say it was at
30.
least 8.
Yeah. Which is just crazy. Yeah, that's the thing. Go ahead.
I really like that part in like the first 10 minutes or whatever, where he's getting stitched up by the doctor, right?
He's like, you
Yeah.
have 5.
that
That whole
was really
sequence-
cool, right?
The
Like,
first act
The
of this
world
movie.
building of it is just great.
I think I really like the first act of this movie because it's essentially just another 20 minutes of the end of John Wick 2, which is my favorite thing in the whole series, right? And like just you have 20 minutes, just the total countdown. Like
and they keep cutting back to that what is it like that room
Like
where they
call
keep on the
center.
call
Yeah.
center. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
Like old school, like 40s, like plugging in the lines into the walls.
So awesome.
I just feel like maybe John Wick 3 wasn't as tight, right? John Wick 1, he has a very specific goal. He's trying to kill Theon. Then in John Wick 2, he has a very specific goal of having to fulfill this marker. But then in John Wick 3, he's just, aside from the first act, which has a really tight, concise countdown, he's just sort of walking around, like being like, I don't want to die. I don't know, go to the desert maybe.
That's why I think he's right, and I think this is like a part 1, part 2 thing, because I think who's the director? Chad Stileski.
Chad Stileski, yeah.
Yeah, it's probably not how you pronounce the last name.
Stileski, yeah.
Stileski?
It's
Okay.
Stileski. You can quote me.
I think I'm pretty sure he had always set this up to be like a 4-film thing instead of a trilogy. At least I read that somewhere, because I know
We'll find out.
him and like the former producer David Leitch.
He does Deadpool, right?
Yeah, Deadpool 2 and Hobbs and Shaw.
Hell yeah.
He had Atomic Blonde.
Hell yeah.
He still wants to do a John Wick like the two of them want to do a John Wick Atomic Blonde crossover. I know they want to do a TV show based on the Continental.
That's in production right now. I think.
Yeah, and then I think they're gonna do a spin-off from that little, like his early years type thing about one of the ballerinas.
I just feel like, I don't know, man. The world is interesting, but I don't know. It might be the Star Wars problem,
I
right?
was gonna say
Yeah.
the same thing.
Mile
Yeah,
wide, but
like,
an inch deep.
One of those things. I mean, but let's see how deep it goes. I
Yeah.
guess I think if you get a lot of talented writers that can expand on the world building, like you might make this work,
Yeah.
But isn't he also gonna make a Highlander movie?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Why not?
I think he's doing Highlander and like Tom Clancy's The Division.
Oh, that's fun, but I don't think about the Division as like high octane. We'll talk about video games on a different show. So
Jake Gyllenhaal starring in it. That's something else.
so I guess we'll wrap up here. That's solid 20 something.
Yeah, so final thoughts?
Go see John Wick 3. Don't feel bad if you go to the bathroom halfway through. You're gonna be fine.
Yeah, as soon as Braun shows up, you might be good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would say it's like my favorite of the 3, but I guess that has a lot to do with the spectacle.
Yeah. What do you come to these movies for, I guess, is the ultimate question you have to ask yourself.
All right, like the fight scene, but I love the world building in this one. I think the narrative is pretty tight, but not as tight as like 2. But I think a lot of that will be wrapped up in 4, and I think that's why they did the whole John Wick Chapter 3, like, because it was John Wick Chapter 2, John Wick Chapter 3, and then a little mini title. So I wouldn't be surprised if they called it like John Wick 3 or Chapter 3, and then another little
Like
mini
Final
title.
Fantasy?
Yeah. I could see that, but maybe they'll go John Wick Chapter 4 and then like another little subtitle. So because I think 3 and 4 are gonna be closer connected than 2 and 3 was, or 1 and 2 was.
One of the things I thought was great about number 3 was the fact that, you know, you're right that it's like very much spectacle, but what's nice is that it incorporates a lot of the world building aspects of the second one along with that spectacle, so it's not just sheer spectacle. And for that reason, I feel like people will enjoy it, because the people who appreciate these films for the story and the world building will get that along with the spectacle of the fight scenes.
Actually, I thought of something else.
Go ahead. What do you?
I was gonna say, I think this one had like some of the strongest performances.
Yeah.
I think Keanu Reeves gave like his like John Wick the widest range of like depth he's had as far as a character goes. I thought Halle Berry did a very good job.
Watching those other two movies, it's pretty clear. Like honestly, there aren't a lot of great performances in John Wick 1. It's pretty stale, pretty bland acting. So
Forrest Whitaker was great.
I'm gonna live this down eventually.
I actually kind
it's
of have
gonna
a
be
problem
great.
with the way Lawrence Fishburne plays that character, but
No, yeah, a little bit. I thought the adjudicator was a cool character.
yeah, she's cool.
Like made like an interesting villain.
That's another
'cause-
piece of world building that's kind of
Yeah, because
interesting.
we haven't had like a real just distinct villain that feels just above everything else. Because
This is
even
the
like,
representation of the above the table
yeah,
stuff.
because the villains in the previous two just were not as strong as John Wick, and that like that was evident. So they'd always like throw just endless waves of bad guys at him. The adjudicator feels like, you know, they have the ability just to like end John Wick's life.
Well,
Maybe not them.
They're on a
themselves.
completely different level. Like,
Yeah.
like that's the comparison of like, you know, in 1 and 2, like first of all, 1, you know, it's a bunch of, you know, mafioso gangsters that aren't even close to as strong and like skilled as John Wick. And then you have the second one where he eventually starts going against other skilled hit people. And then the third one, it's like every single skilled hit person in the area is now going after the person with the highest bounty available, regardless of his skill. And it's being controlled by people from a very high place of power that control whether or not he's free game or not. And I do feel like the introduction of her character is going to allow for an even like more interesting villain for the fourth one. Because I'm assuming she'll be a much, like, while she was a big part of number 3, I feel like she's going to be like even bigger in 4.
Yeah, there's like this like almost ascension from like the dirt of like human right up to God, because John Wick has this weird like Pope punk sort of like obsession with.
Pope punk.
See, also like a Boondock Saints.
Yeah.
Or why did and Hitman, like the games, also have like a weird gun,
Yeah.
like God thing. I don't know.
I'm sorry, you're saying there's something wrong with.
Religion.
Yes.
Anyways, I thought John Wick 3 wasn't bad. You know, no, that's like way too like temperate. I really like John Wick 3. I did have a good time seeing it. There's really great action sequences. I think the first act and the third act are way stronger than the second act, which drags a little bit. That first act though, that's tasty candy for Papa. You know what I mean?
I don't. Can you elaborate?
I don't want you to say that again.
Can we just get that on a loop? Like,
That's tasty candy from Papa, you know what I mean?
in slow motion, it just gets closer to your face.
I almost said daddy, so
I will say one of the aspects of like why I feel like, you know, hit people and like religion becomes such like a key like mesh is because you essentially become God in that moment.
Yeah.
You know, you are the one who controls life and death for these other individuals, and that's carried through in that moment. You get to choose whether they exist or not.
right on. Well, speaking of whether or not something will be existing, this is for a while, for the last time, for a little bit, couple months. Goodbye from STUBTOWN. Got it.
So are we gonna start up the fight scene now, or?
I don't know if we have time. I'm gonna like. It's been a year.
For sure.
Died a couple times.
Literally went to hell and back.
Watched some movies.
Yeah. No, I actually never did that part. You have been BSing this whole time.
You know what bothers me, though?
What?
Genevieve hired that hitman.
So?
Who did she hire him to kill?
Gentlemen.
Oh yeah, no, that makes sense. Holy is that a gun? It is, a real gun, and he's pointing it at us. What's he gonna do? Shoot me?
Hi, my name's Nick Cage, no relation. Rolling.
Sound. Speed. Since I forgot to do this since take one.
Nice.
Action.
You know what, let's try one without it. You know what, actually, put it back on.